Hello, students, and welcome to the lecture today, which is going to be about atoms and atomic structure. And what we're going to be doing today is essentially just reviewing what should be a review for most of you on what makes up an atom, the real purpose for us learning about atoms, and then some of the factors that affect the atom in and of itself. So, without much ado, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and take this presentation here, and we're going to pretend that I made this presentation. We're just going to pretend. We know that we didn't. Some other guy made it for us, but, the life of a chemist is, inherently lazy. And the first question that we're going to go ahead and answer with today's thing is, what are atoms? Okay? And atoms are essentially the basic building block of matter. And they are what makes up everyday object. When we think about our common items like a desk, the air, the ocean, everything that we interact with in some way or another is going to be made up of some sort of atom. And we'll be able to tell what sort of atoms these things are made up by looking at them as they're listed on the periodic table. Okay? And then those atoms are going to be made up of different numbering of subatomic particles. So for here, you see that we have 4 different atoms listed, and they have a different ratio of subatomic particles. Okay? The first one that we have listed is hydrogen. That's our most basic one. And you guys should know, based off of, other classes, that hydrogen is one of the components of water. Okay, so water is made up of this atom of hydrogen. Okay, now in the structure of the atom, we're going to have 3 things that we're going to be concerned about. Okay, we're going to be concerned about protons, and protons are a mass-carrying particle of the atom, and they have a positive charge. We have neutrons, and neutrons have a negative charge. They also have a lot of mass. And then we have electrons, okay? And the electrons do not have a lot of mass. The electrons are really, really light, okay? They have some mass, but not very much at all, okay? And one thing that I want you guys to know is that the protons and the neutrons, typically they hang out together. And one thing from the previous slide that we didn't get to go over too much is I want you to note that these neutrons are kind of like the glue that kind of holds the nucleus together. And the whole reason that we go ahead and call them the glue is because they keep the positive charges separated from one another. And that's like really one of the main purposes of the neutrons in there, is to keep the positive charges separated from each other. Because you guys know from electromagnetism that if you put 2 positive ends, they're going to try and go away from each other. Okay? And when we represent this in an image, what we like to do is do what's called a cross plot. And in the cross plot, what will happen is that we're going to go ahead and draw our neutrons and protons together, usually in a big ball in the middle. And around them, we'll go ahead and indicate the electrons. And typically, the electrons in this case are drawn with an X. And notice the first energy level will always have 2, and then you'll make a second energy level. And then you don't need it yet, but the second energy level, we will generally have 8 electrons in it. Okay. And again, this note here says that just the protons and neutrons are in the center of the atom. Okay. We know that different atom makeups react differently. And that's because the amount of protons and electrons. For example, with oxygen and carbon, both of these react differently. And the reason that they do is that they have a different number of protons. And protons are what really defines the atom in and of itself. So if you know how many protons there are, you'll be able to go ahead and, say, oh, I know what kind of atom this is. Okay. And those protons then kind of attract the electrons, and then the electrons actually do all the bonding inside there. Okay. And that's just a video that guy had. Okay. This is all about drawing electrons. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and pull us back here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a periodic table here for us. Okay. And this periodic table, this is the one that I like to use because, well, it's just, pretty convenient there. And as I said before, we can go ahead and tell how many protons or neutrons are, or what an element is, based off of how many protons it has. And luckily for us, the periodic table is arranged so that the very top number right here shows us exactly how many protons. So this is hydrogen, and hydrogen has 1 proton. Okay. This right here is the element helium. Notice helium has a 2 right here, therefore this one will have 2 protons. Okay. Now another question that you might get is, all right, what is the element that has 7 protons? Okay. Well, here, if you get a question like that, what you'll do is you go, oh, okay, well, let's go and find number 7. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it looks like nitrogen has 7 protons. Now, the next question is, let's say that you have 12 electrons, and it is a neutral atom. Okay. Well, you can go ahead and tell that an atom is going to be a neutral atom because it'll have a charge of 0. Okay? Now, I want you to imagine that you have an atom and it has a charge of 0. Okay? And we just said that we had 12 electrons. Okay? Now these electrons, they have a negative charge. What's something that we can add to that to give us 0? Well, we'd have to have 12 positive charges. Okay? And so if you see, or if it says that it's a neutral atom, you could be like, oh, well, if it has 12 electrons and it's a neutral atom, that has to have 12 protons. Okay? And then you can go back to your periodic table and be like, okay, let's see number 12. This is 10, 11, 12. Okay, it looks like it's magnesium. All right. So that's the last thing that I need you to know for this section here. And this is just a basic section getting you guys refamiliarized with the idea of atoms and atomic structure. You can use this section to go ahead and this video to help you with your notes, or you can go ahead and move on to the reading, which will also help you with your notes.